Street Genius, Part 7. The more we choose to accept responsibility in our lives, the more power we will exercise over our lives. Accepting responsibility for our problem is thus the first step to solving them. I once knew a man who was convinced that the reason no women would date him was because he was too short. He was educated, interesting, and good looking, a good catch in principle, but he was absolutely convinced that women found him too short to date. And because he felt that he was too short, he didn't often go out and try to meet women. The few times he did, he would hone in on the smallest behaviors from any woman he talked with what could possibly indicate he wasn't attractive enough for her, and then convince himself that she didn't like him. Even if she really did, as you can imagine, his dating life sucked. What he didn't realize was that he had chosen the value that was hurting him. Height. Women, he assumed, are attracted only to height. He was screwed no matter what he did. The choice of a value is disempowering. It gave this man a really crappy problem, not being tall enough in a world meant, in his view, for tall people. There are far better values that he could have adopted in his dating life. I want to date only women who like me for who I am. Might have been a nice place to start. A metric that assesses the value of honesty and acceptance. But he did not choose these values. He likely wasn't even aware that he was choosing his value or could do so. Even though he didn't realize it, he was responsible for his own problems. Despite that responsibility, he went on complaining, "But I don't have a choice." He would tell the bartender, "There is nothing I can do. Women are superficial and vain and will never like me." Yes, it's every single woman's fault for not liking me, and a self pitying, shallow guy with shitty values, obviously. A lot of people hesitate to take responsibility for their problems because they believe that to be responsible for your problem is also to be at fault with your problem. Responsibility and fault often appear together in our culture, but they are not the same thing. If I hit you with my car, I'm both at fault and likely legally responsible to compensate you in some way. Even if hitting you with my car was an accident, I'm still responsible. This is the fault that works my way in our society. If you fuck up, you're only on the hook for making it right, and it should be that way. But there are also problems that we aren't at fault for, yet we are still responsible for them. For example, if you woke up one day and there was a newborn baby on your doorstep, it would not be your fault that the baby had been put there, but the baby would now be your responsibility. You would have to choose what to do. And whatever you ended up choosing, keeping it, getting rid of it, ignoring it, feeding it to pit bull, there would be problems associated with your choice, and you would be responsible for those as well. Judges don't get to choose their cases. When a case goes to the court, the judge assigned to it did not commit the crime, was not a witness to the crime, and was not affected by the crime, but he or she is still responsible for the crime. The judge must then choose the consequences. He or she must identify the metric against which the crime will be measured and make sure that the chosen metric is carried out. We are responsible for experiences that aren't our fault all the time. This is part of life. Here is one way to think about distinction between the two concepts. Fault is the past tense, responsibility is the present tense. Fault results from the choices that have already been made. Responsibility results from the choices that you are currently making every second of every day. You are choosing to read this, you are choosing to think about the concepts. You are choosing to accept or reject the concept. It may be my fault you think my ideas are lame, but you are responsible for coming to your own conclusions. It's not your fault that I choose to write this sentence, but you are still responsible for choosing to read it or read it not. There is a difference between blaming someone else for your situation. That person is actually being responsible for your situation. Nobody else is ever responsible for your situation, but you are responsible. Many people may be there to blame for unhappiness, for your unhappiness, but nobody is ever responsible for your unhappiness but you. This is because you always get to choose how you see things, how you react to things, how you value the things. You always get to choose the metric by which to measure your experiences.